go to your bathroom just for like 2 minutes? Nah, I'm kicking her out of her own house.
Call it spring, like everything is new. The sunburst flowers calling on Mondays overdue. But I call like everything is new.
Alrighty guys, hello, it's Rosalie. For those of you who might know my name, my actual name, I work with kids. These kids found my YouTube channel, and now every single day when I'm at work, they just come up to me like telling me these really personal facts about me, or they'll just start tattletaling on me because I sometimes say bad words here. I'm just trying not to be so accessible to them. Like, this is a space outside of work. I don't want to feel like I have to filter myself in terms of language. So this is not a kids channel. Alrighty, so although some things have changed, like my name, my hair, other things have not changed. Like, I still hate doing intros. I always will. So I have this cup, and in this cup I have like little papers folded, and I'm gonna unfold it and talk about the book that is pulled out. Oh, also another thing, this is a green screen. I'm not actually with the wall of flowers, or I'm not actually in SpongeBob's home. I'm not actually in space. Hi. So let's start off on a good note. I have this cup. I'm using it to just pick out books from here and then talk about the books that I read. So I have about 6 little papers, meaning that I have read 6 books. Let's see, let's start off on a good note. Oh. The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. This is a mystery thriller, and it is the only mystery thriller that I read for this month. We are following this girl named Lo Blackford or Blacklock, basically like the most fictional character name you could think of. She is a journalist who's writing for this travel magazine, and she gets this wonderful opportunity to make a journal entry while also enjoying this luxurious cruise ship that has few cabins in them with people that are very well known. So while she is in this cruise, you know, minding her own business, trying to enjoy herself, she hears what could only be interpreted as someone being pushed out the cruise ship window and into the waves of the ocean. So this just turned a clear blue day into a gloomy one when she finds out that there has been a murder in the cruise ship. So naturally, as she's hearing this, she looks out in the water. She can't see anyone, so then she goes and reports it to the security guard, and they start to see everyone, start talking to everyone, and she says, you know, it's the cabin right next to me, it's cabin 10, just for them to then find out there's no one staying in cabin 10. They remember that story of like a guy that danced all night with this girl and she forgot her sweater. You know, days later he goes to the place that he dropped her off, and he's like, oh, where's your daughter? She forgot her sweater. And they're like, my daughter passed away years ago. Who knows that story? I think I know it from like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, the book, not the movie. The movie was a mess. I didn't like it. But anyways, I'm getting out of hand. It also reminds me of like those train novels. The lights go off and then someone disappears from the train. So she goes and tells the security guard, and she herself is starting to look at people, trying to see what their alibi is. As she's checking where they were, at what place they were, people are also looking at her and questioning her because of some prior events that happened before getting on the cruise ship. I feel like this could have potentially been a very cool story, but even when like the twists and turns, my mind, or like my face, is just like this. Not that I'm a writer, okay? I'm not a writer myself, but I feel like I would rather hate a book than feel indifferent about a book, you know? Because at least when you hate it, you're like enjoying some aspect, like maybe it's entertaining in the way that you hate it, kind of like when you see Twilight, you know it's bad. There was plot twists, there's revelations, and honestly, I didn't feel connected with the characters. I didn't care for the plot. I honestly feel like it was a waste of my time, and if I were to read this book physically, because I heard the audiobook of it, it would just make me go into a reading slump. So I gave this book 2 stars because the writing is good, but like now that I'm thinking about it, maybe like 1.5 stars because the writing is good, but it's not good enough to make this character likable. Hopefully this next one is better. We have The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. This is a romance book that I read in the month of June. Well, we all know that Christina Lauren is a very famous author, especially for their romance books. They have some hits, you know, and I've been kind of trying to read all her books. And let me just say, this book is definitely on the top 5. I might even say top 3 And that's because the premise is so unique. I never read Love Hypothesis, but something about the way that I will describe this and the way that other people describe the Love Hypothesis, which is really famous, makes me feel like they're very connected. We follow this protagonist named Jess. One day she is visiting her friend at her job inside a coffee shop, and her friend is a writer. And every day at a certain time, this guy that they refer to as Americano walks into the shop and he orders. Guess what he orders? They find out that he's a doctor and he has a company that is developing this app called Genetically. Her friend, being a writer, volunteers herself and Jess to be the guinea pigs of this company. So they go. During her time, Jess sees that although he looks very nice from the outside, his personality is one that's similar to like Siri. By chance, one day when she's going through like a mental breakdown, she submits her blood into this company because she feels like she's gonna be alone her whole life. As a single mother, have I mentioned that? She's a single mother. She has a diamond pair, but guess with who? With Dr. River Peña. That the company calls her for a meeting and they tell her, I feel like you guys should date. It would be great information to use when we're promoting our company. And she just refuses. She does not want to date this guy because she eavesdropped one time and he called her average looking. A couple of days later, she's going through these financial hardships. She's just lost her job and the company comes to her again, but this time they say, we'll pay you more than $10,000. So ain't nobody gonna let that go. I would not let that go. So she's like, you know what, I'll accept. But you already know that if Genetically was an actual thing, half of us would be like very paranoid to give our DNA because the government, but you also know the other half of us would be going like at breakneck speed to actually get that inside. Like no one is trying to date, like no one is trying to find a guy within a 10-mile radius to see who they are, you know, because they have like filters that, you know, you could like put like, oh, I want a guy from like within 3 miles, or I want a guy that lives somewhere else, or I want someone that speaks this language. It's awesome. I don't know if I would do it personally.
Looks like we have some clowns who are desperate for airtime.
But anyways, this is a beautiful story. I really do recommend it. I love the unique premise. It's not something I've ever heard before. I love the characters. Turns out Mr. River Peña is not so robotic. Once you get to know him a little bit more, I find the side characters hilarious. Her friend, her child are so amusing. I love them. Her relationship with her grandparents is so wholesome. They help her raise her child. Her mother though, we could do without her. I definitely recommend this book. I gave this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I don't know. I've read better romances from Christina Lauren, so I'm just like saving that 0.5 for another book that I have in mind from them. On to the third book. Oh, Slammed by Colleen Hoover. Now, if you know me, you know that I love Colleen Hoover. But something about her romance books is that you gotta be prepared. You're not gonna leave from that book feeling emotionally okay. Like, it's a ride. Okay, nothing about these books are like cheesy and soft and fluffy reads. Like, no, they will include the most emotionally damaging things. So anyways, I have been reading Colleen Hoover for a while. I think it's since high school. And I realized that from all the books that I've read, I had not read her debut novel. So I decided to finally pick it up. I was in a reading slump. I was like, Colleen Hoover, I can always trust her. She will always get me out of it. But there's always a but. Before I get to that, let's explain this book. So we follow this girl named Lakin. We already know that by the name we're going downhill from here. And this guy named Will. Lakin is a 18-year-old whose father just passed recently. So her mother takes her and her little brother upstate for a fresh beginning and also for a more affordable one. Once they arrive, her brother sees his neighbor who is also a little boy and they start hanging out immediately. And through them, Lakin and Will meet. And immediately they felt like they had this great chemistry. So Will decides to ask Lakin out for a date. And he takes her to this slam poetry club. Let me just tell you, like, this guy he started revealing like his deepest and darkest secrets in the first date. I feel like most people would be like,
run.
It's like dark, you know, it's really heavy things, but like it was like, oh my god, that's so cute, he's so sensitive. Their relationship is really flourishing, they're bonding so well, until Lakin goes to school and she sees Will there, and that's when they find out that, you know what, we probably shouldn't be together. It might be even a little illegal to be together. This is my problem with this book, okay, because if they just would have taken the path of least resistance, everything would have been solved, okay? Because of this revelation, you know, they figured, you know what, we need to separate ourselves because we can't get caught and we're gonna get in trouble. And her mom also told her to stop talking to this guy because it's illegal. But you know what they do? They do the exact opposite. And it's like, bro, if you wanted to get caught, you should have just said it. You do everything you're not supposed to. Like, you just like, God gave me a sign, and when he gives it to you, you're like, Where is it? I don't see it. It was very annoying to see that, and it's just kind of like, compared to Colleen Hoover's other books, like she could definitely be more creative in the way that she creates problems within the plot. I could just tell that this is definitely her debut novel, but it was a disaster, but one that you just cannot stop looking at. It was like popcorn in hand. I was eating this up, but did it take me on my reading slump? No. Is it the best Colleen Hoover book? No. There's a sequel to this. Am I gonna read it? No. I gave this book 3 stars. It's not horrible. If you want to read it, I could say that you will at least be entertained. Will it be your favorite book ever? No. Alright, let's choose our next book. Well, still in the train of Colleen Hoover, I also read Without Merit by Colleen Hoover. This is definitely, like, I need to give some trigger warnings. It talks about suicide, it talks about drug abuse, and it talks about depression. Like, you cannot make this shit up. This book is a mess. This follows a protagonist named Merit who has a twin sister named Honor. And although they were very close as children, as they grew up, they start to grow apart. Merit has that kind of like resentimiento or like resentment towards her. Because of that, she feels like no one really accepts her in her family. Her family just bought a new home that happens to be a church, and they bought this church just to spite a priest. And underneath this church, in a basement, her mom is living there, and her mom has this phobia of stepping outside and interacting with people. And upstairs, her father is married with a new woman who was her mother's nurse, and they have a child in the way. So Merit has a lot of anger towards that, and just that whole dynamic between all of them. It begins off with Merit in this thrift shop, and she sees this boy that keeps looking at her, and then outside they like lock eyes, they talk to each other a little bit, and they like share their first kiss, to then only find out that this guy was actually her sister's boyfriend, and he just got them confused. That's so like, bitch, this is messy. This is a sad and somber read because they have such a complex family dynamic, and there's other characters that kind of enter this story as well. It takes a while to kind of get your bearings and understand what the fuck is going on, but it's one that I did enjoy. Like, I had laughter, but it was more like secondhand embarrassment that made me want to cringe, and all you could really do is just laugh at that point. But yeah, like, I don't have much to say about this book. I did feel connected to the characters, I did care for them, but I don't know, something about it just left me dissatisfied. It's not like the best Colleen Hoover book. I have to like tier rank this. It's like towards the bottom, but not as low as November 9. I forgot to say, I gave that book 3 stars. All right, next one. All right, I'm showing too much. I'm brain shoulder. This is The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas, and I've been waiting to talk about this book. Also, Alejandra, I threw that paper on top of your fridge and I can't get it. I'm sorry. I adore this book. This book gave me what I was looking for from Colleen Hoover. I heard Books with Chloe mention this book, but at the time I didn't think it was a popular book, so I was like, oh my god, I'm being so different. No, bitch, I'm literally like everyone else here, because this is a very, 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 very popular book at the moment, especially a romance book. And this is kind of like, for those of you who are not book readers, think of the movie The Proposal. If you love that movie, you're gonna love this book. Like, let's compare and contrast, like, just entertain me, okay? So we start off in New York. We have co-workers that hate each other. It's an enemies to lover romance. This has this sort of predicament where one or both characters need this favor, so they need to pretend like they're fake dating. That's like been like a theme with the books that I read this month unintentionally. They have to travel somewhere to meet family that they haven't spoken to in years. They have that whole trope of like, there's only one bedroom, so we have to share the same bed trope. We have the same fucking denial and stubbornness that they're not willing to accept that the other person likes them. So the main character is Catalina, and her love interest is called Aaron. There was a meme where it said like Aaron showing all his love and affection, and then Catalina being like, child. Anyway, so there's a lot of things that they have in common, except this book kind of makes it like Espanol. But there's a little too many similarities. But regardless, it just scratched an itch. I've been looking for like a cute rom-com. I've been looking for a cute rom-com movie, but I got it as a book. Without like so much sexism and stereotypes. Like, there's still some, you know, it's like a 2-for-1 deal. Us girls, like, we can never escape it. But there's comfort in knowing that there's less. I really enjoyed this book. I loved it. I love the characters. I love the romance. I did find it annoying how stubborn they could be sometimes, and how if they just would have communicated about it, it could have been solved. Yeah, and it was still an amazing book. I definitely recommend it. It's worth the hype. This book took me on my reading slump. 5 out of 5 stars. I couldn't recommend more. It's worth the hype. The next book There's only one left, so I don't even know why I'm doing this. It's The X Hex by Erin Sterling. This is a book I heard as an audiobook, but I was actually going to get this book as a physical one the last time I went to Barnes & Noble, which was months ago, but I remembered it when I saw it on Libby, and I just gave it a try. It's definitely one that is unique, one that I did not expect, and maybe one that I should have gotten instead. Like, I hope Conversations with Friends is worth it because this book was worth my time. I had a lot of fun reading it. It's unique in the sense that it's like was like a witch trio, like Hocus Pocus, but like make it chic, or like or like a Witches of East End. Who remembers that show? Because I used to watch it religiously on Lifetime. Or like the Hex Girls, bro. Do the Hex Girls or something else? Like that song in that Scooby-Doo movie.
I'm a hex girl, and I'm gonna put a spell on you. Oh yeah. With this little cobweb potion, you'll fall into dark devotion. If you ever lose affection, I can change your whole direction. I'm a hex girl, and I'm gonna put a spell on you. I'm gonna put a spell on you. We're gonna put a spell on all of you. Earth, wind, fire, and air. We may look bad, but we don't care. We ride the wind, we feel the fire. To love the earth is our one desire. To love the earth is our one desire. Love the earth, it's only fair. It's one big earth that we must share. We love the earth with all our fire. It's in our souls, our one desire. Earth, wind, fire, and air. We may look bad, but we don't care.
It just hit differently. Even years later now, I still think that that's an amazing song. Point is that it's like a witch trio group plus the first half of the romance from The Notebook, like without the dementia and stuff. So it starts off with Vivi in a bathtub with wine, listening to sad music, being heartbroken about her ex, who was the child of the founding family from this town. Now Vivi comes from a line of witches and her ex comes from a line of sorcerers. So they date for a while and they really get along. They hit it off, only to just find out that this ex actually was going to get married somewhere else. Her cousin is like, you know what, Vivi, we're not gonna have this and we're gonna make a hex out of him. But they were kind of just kidding around. It was more just for laughs and giggles, until 9 years later when her ex needs to come to town to represent his family for the annual festival. The moment he enters the city, things start to go very wrong. Vivi felt obligated to help her ex get through this curse, but it is not so easy. So I gave this book 3.5 stars. It was a good book, it was, but I don't see myself reading this book again. Maybe during the Halloween time, it could kind of fit the vibe if I'm looking for like a spooky but romantic book. But spooky in the sense that it just has like spooky elements. It's not actually scary. It's almost like a rom-com. The two love interests have great chemistry. I really enjoy them. They have their little funny scenes. The only thing is during their hex, they said some things that were very specific, and that some things didn't come true, right? And it was kind of like, oh, how convenient for you, bitch. If that actually happened, you wouldn't have left half-ass satisfied with most of your interactions with your ex. Now, if you read this book, you'll know what I'm talking about. But what can I expect? Why am I gonna expect something realistic from a book that literally has ghosts and libraries and talking skulls? And yeah, honestly, if I were to like rank these books, should we start from least to greatest or greatest to least? Let's end in a good note. So least, The Woman in Cabin 10. Second to last is Slammed. Third is Without Merit. Fourth is the X Hex. Second is the Soulmate Equation. And first is The Love Deception. Let me know if you have read any of these books that I have mentioned. Let's talk about it down in the comments. If you read the sequel to Slammed, I wouldn't mind getting spoiled. Yeah, so thank you so much for watching. If this wasn't a complete waste of your time, please subscribe, like, comment, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Take care. Wash your hands. Bye.